Alrighty, guys, welcome to this week's weekly outlook. Thank you guys for joining us. My name is David Schinkel. I'm the CEO and founder of Positive Traders. If this is your guys' first weekly outlook, I thank you guys for joining us today. Let's go ahead and jump right into things. Without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the economic calendar first. I want to look at two key risk events. And very quickly, I also just want to share with you my disclaimer, guys, that any information or biases or views that I share on this weekly outlook is just an opinion of my own. All of this information should be used for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please do not be taking any of this as financial advice. But let's go ahead and get started. I want to take a look at two key risk events this week two key risk events this week on the economic calendar. So first thing is early this week, we have some CPI and some core CPI, both month over month reports coming out for the US dollar at the exact same time. And a little bit later, about the day after, we have retail sales and PPI coming out for the dollar as well. So out of all of the high impact news this week, those I think are going to be our two key risk events. So expect a little bit of volatility on the dollar this week. But other than that, it should be pretty light. We had NFP last Friday and a majority of the high impact news events last week. We don't have any interest rate decisions this week. If you guys traded last week and looked at the economic calendar, you will have noticed that there was actually 3 interest rate decisions last week, as well as NFP and a handful of other high-impact news events. So last week was a very, very volatile week in the markets. And this week, I think it should be toned down just a little bit. But just keep in mind that CPI and retail sales and PPI coming out this week. Make sure that when you are looking at the economic calendar that you have the time set to the correct time. I don't like to say what time it is going to be at because you guys might be in a different time zone, being that I'm all the way in Australia. Some of you guys are in America, Europe, Canada, wherever you are, might be in a different area, different time zone. But let's get into the technicals for this week. Starting off with the dollar index. We've been a little bit rangy the past few weeks. We've been stuck between the 90.50 area and the 88.50 area. And I'll just let you guys know right off the bat that my overall bias for this week is dollar weakness. So as we go through a couple of the pairs, that's essentially going to be my bias for this week. Now on this weekly outlook, generally, I go over all of these pairs that you see over to the right here. However, we're going to be skipping over just a few today, some that I think are just kind of like a waste of time because I'm not really interested in trading, and we're really just going to be looking at the ones that I am most interested in trading. So this won't be a super drawn-out webinar. We'll be done probably within the next 10 to 15 minutes here, 20 at the most. So dollar index, my overall bias is I'm expecting some downside towards the 88.50 area. First, I think we need to retest last week's lows. We're overall in a fairly large downtrend on the dollar index, not just the past couple of months, but also the past about year and a year, just a little bit over a year. We've seen some significant downside on the dollar. So beginning of 2017, you guys know that's really when we started to see some weakness in the dollar, and that weakness has really continued over the past about 14, 15 months or so. I think this weakness is going to continue. Last week we saw a fairly significant, it was actually going to be last Friday, I believe. Let's just double check on that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not last Friday, but the Friday before last week, we saw some pretty strong rejection around this fairly significant supply level for the dollar index, right? We've seen this green zone around the 90.50 act as a pretty significant level. We saw lots of consolidation around this bear flag. We saw some resistance around this bear flag. Once we dropped through that area and we came towards the 88.50 area, we made that correction. We found some resistance, and then just recently we found some more resistance in this area. So lots of selling pressure on the dollar index right now. So I'm going to be definitely biased towards the downside, in my opinion, which means on a pair like Euro USD, I'm going to be looking for upside. This is good. I just want to just share a little bit of education with you guys because I see that there are a lot of new faces. I don't know how new you guys are to Forex, but if you have your trading journal out or something to take notes with, I would highly recommend doing so and writing what I'm about to say down. Why the dollar index is so important. Some of you guys may not even know what we're looking at right now, the DXY. This is the US dollar index. And this essentially, in short, measures the strength of the dollar. So if you have your notes down, you can write DXY equals strength of the US dollar. If you see this chart going up, then that is a strong dollar. If you see this chart going down, then that is a weak dollar. And why this is so important is because of the correlation between this index and Euro USD. So you guys know Euro USD is the most commonly traded pair. It has the highest liquidity out of any trading pair in the markets because it's the most common to be traded. It has the most liquidity and most volume in it. And the dollar index, this is very, very important. I'm sure I see a lot of familiar faces too from the premium group in here as well. So I probably sound like a broken record to most of you guys that follow along with the daily webinars that we do for the premium group. But the dollar index does the exact opposite of the Euro USD. Meaning, I mean, that should be pretty self-explanatory, but just to kind of put two and two together, if you're still lost, that means that if I'm expecting downside on the dollar index, and I just said that the dollar index and the Euro USD do the exact opposite of each other, then I am going to be expecting upside on Euro USD. All right. And you guys can play around with that a little bit more, after this webinar, if this is news to you, if you did not know about the dollar index before. But I don't want to get too in-depth on the dollar index, but it's essentially, it just measures the strength of the dollar. It's a weighted it's a weighted index between a basket of currencies. I believe 8 different currencies, and the euro making up, I believe it's about 56 or 57% of that weight in the basket. So, just an example, if we actually were just to remove all the drawings off of the charts and we switch between these two, you notice that they are the exact opposite of each other, right? We can even stretch it out just a little bit so you can see. Watch, like, take a mental image really quickly, mental picture in your head of how Euro USD looks, and then imagine it flipped upside down with the dollar index, right? These two pairs do the exact opposite of, dollar index isn't a pair, but these two charts do the exact opposite of each other, okay? So just something for some of you guys that may be new to Forex, tuning in for the first time, you may not be familiar with the dollar index. So that is something very important to keep in mind. So I'm going to put the levels back on the charts, but overall, I'm expecting downside on the dollar index. We're also finding some nice resistance around the 50. This moving average, is green moving average that you guys see on my chart, coming down on my chart right now, and that you'll see on every other chart, is the 50 EMA. So we have the 50 daily exponential moving average on the dollar. We found a little bit of resistance around that area the week before last as well. But overall, my sentiment is towards the downside on the dollar. So what does that mean for gold? Another just little tidbit of information in case you guys are new to Forex or tuning in for the first time, you guys don't know the correlation. Generally speaking, a weak dollar means strong gold. So if we're looking for sells on the dollar this week, or if I'm looking for sells on the dollar this week, then I'm also going to be expecting gold to rise. And so that's what I'm going to be expecting to happen. Gold is probably going to find its way towards the 1350 area over the next week or so. That's what I would expect. So if you have that written down in your trading journals, gold will probably likely move from around the 1320 level where it's at now up to the 1350 level. That's what I would expect. Euro USD. So right before this started, guys, I mentioned that I would be looking at 2 or 3 pairs that I am specifically interested in trading in this week, and this is one of those pairs. So Euro USD, especially for you guys that are in the premium group, most likely a signal coming through very soon for Euro USD. I'm going to be looking for some buying pressure on Euro USD. Going to be looking for some buys and some strength because I am biased towards a weaker dollar. So now some of you guys that are here for some knowledge and information on the charts, I would recommend that you guys probably have these green levels on your charts. That first level is going to be the 122.96 area where we're currently sitting around some support level. Pretty significant level. I mean, we recently saw some support, but if you guys have been following along with these weekly webinars, we did not have a weekly webinar last week, but if you watched the week before last, the week before that, so the week before that, multiple weekly webinars now, we've had the 123.88 and 122.96 level marked off. I've gone over these a little bit more in depth on some of the previous webinars. If you guys are interested on knowing exactly why these levels are here, I'm not going to really get too into that today. But those 2 levels are pretty significant. And then we also have our very significant supply area for Euro USD, our very significant resistance around the 125 area, which is pretty self-explanatory. And then we have our intermediate support around 122, where we have some supply for this consolidation that we've been in for quite a while. There's a couple other areas as well from a scaled out perspective. We kind of have the 121 area, 120.92 area, but we won't get into that too much because I'm here to just share my biases, not really go over my charts as much. So also from a weekly standpoint, if we clear out the just all the drawings really quickly and we look at just price, exact opposite of the dollar index, right? Since 2017, we've seen some weakness on the dollar, which has obviously created some strength in the euro. Now, this is also a long-term outlook for me with Euro USD rising. If you guys are not familiar with the US economy right now, overall on the outside, it tends to be doing pretty good. But if you guys are familiar with the transfer of wealth or transfer of investing in the US right now, there is a lot of money. And when I say a lot of money, I'm not talking about like retail traders, people buying and selling stocks. I'm talking like institutions like billions and tens of billions and hundreds of billions of dollars being removed from the US equities markets and being put into the emerging markets in Europe. So that in itself, I think, is going to create a stronger euro more than likely throughout this year. I think this year we're probably going to see the dollar continue to weaken as we did last year, and we're probably going to see Euro USD continue to rise as we did last year as well. But that's not why I showed the weekly chart. The reason I showed this weekly chart is to show you guys essentially kind of like this consolidation that is happening on Euro USD and this flag that we are creating. So some of you guys might be asking, well, last week, why are you looking to buy the euro? Last week we made an exhaustion candle. I definitely recognize that, right? I definitely see that that happen. However, last week was also NFP. There was also a lot of volatility in the markets from interest rate decisions and just, I think, possibly like a lot of false moves. So I really am not judging Euro USD just on one weekly candle in this case. Maybe if it was at the top, right? If we had a very, very strong bullish run and then we saw this candle as like right up here at the very tip top of price, then maybe yes, but we're still very consolidative, right? We're still technically speaking, making a very nice bull flag on Euro USD. So in short, I'm expecting upside on Euro USD this week. Okay. USD Swiss franc, not really going to go over it too much in detail. However, I would more than likely expect to see downside on USD Swiss franc. For some of you guys that are maybe new to Forex or new to these weekly outlooks, I've gone over correlations in the past. If you guys don't know about my YouTube channel, I have, I think, over 100 weekly outlooks on there. Usually every weekly outlook, I find something to educate you guys on. So that's why they're recorded and they're put on YouTube. Just search Positive Traders on YouTube and you can go through there. There's some free educational videos on there as well. But if you just have some spare time going through those weekly outlooks, and I think just the repetition would definitely help you guys out. Obviously, the analysis isn't going to really help you out because that's from past weeks, so that's already happened. But like I said, usually I try to find something to educate you guys on every week on each outlook that I do. But the reason I brought that up is because I've gone over this in past outlooks before, but the correlation between Euro USD and USD Swiss franc is a -1. So meaning if I am looking for upside on Euro USD, I'm most likely looking for downside on USD Swiss franc, and that is what creates my bias right now of me saying I'd probably like to see downside on USD Swiss franc, is because I'm expecting downside on the dollar, so upside on Euro USD, so downside on USD Swiss franc. So far, just to recap, Euro USD is the one of 3 pairs that I'm interested in trading so far. Pound dollar, I'm not really going to go over pound dollar too much. Something we went over last week in the premium webinar. For some of you guys that are premium members, you know that we went over this. Was this ascending channel, and we were talking about a break, most likely to the downside. We got that break, and now we're seeing a little bit of a correction. Not really interested in trading the pound dollar right now. Pound yen. Pound yen is a little bit interesting. I just quickly want to go over this. I really don't want to confuse you guys, for some of you guys that might be just entering Forex with all these, using the term correlation and talking about all these pairs. But I feel like this is important to go over. So very quickly, I just want to go over it. And I don't want to lose any of you guys. So if this is too confusing for you guys, just, I guess just sit tight, and I'm going to be going over 2 other pairs that this is actually one of the pairs that I'm interested in trading, but I want to go over this correlation with you guys. The pound yen, generally speaking, has, or let me say this. The yen, the Japanese yen, generally speaking, has a negative correlation. Positive correlation to, or hold on, guys. Let me backtrack myself. I'm confusing myself thinking this through. Dollar index and pound yen, generally speaking, have a negative correlation to each other. And the Japanese yen and gold usually have a positive correlation to each other, okay? Not pound yen and gold, but the actual yen itself. The actual Japanese yen itself generally has a positive correlation to gold. If you guys are not familiar with the yen, the Japanese yen, it is one of the currencies that is treated as a safe haven currency. And this is all a formality, right? Like a generality in the market, okay? This isn't 100% of the time. So I want you guys to take that with a grain of salt when I say that doesn't mean 100% of the time. But generally speaking, when we see gold rise, we're generally going to see things like dollar yen and pound yen go lower because we see the yen strengthening. Okay. And we know that gold is treated as a safe haven commodity and the yen is treated as a safe haven currency. So I don't want to confuse you guys too much, but essentially because I would be expecting upside on gold, I think we're probably going to see downside on pound yen and dollar yen, but also just the fact that we're probably going to see the dollar weaken, which generally creates weakness in dollar yen and pound yen. Okay, so don't want to overwhelm you guys too much, but pound yen, I'd probably be looking for some downside. It popped back up above the 147.50 area, which if you guys can see on a scaled out point of view on the daily chart of this pair, this is a very significant level. The 147.50 area I would recommend definitely having on your chart. We have a very significant supply area in the past that was broken, turned into some demand for this pair around this area, and right now we're playing around this zone. On Friday, we broke back above this area, and I think we'd be doing something maybe along the lines of this, maybe retesting this area and then finding some downside. But I'd be expecting some downside on this pair because I'm expecting downside on the dollar. And one more correlation for you guys. Again, I'm sorry if I am confusing some of you guys, but I think this is just good information for you guys to have, that weak dollar is generally a weak dollar yen. Okay, that should make sense to most of you guys without having to go too much into detail, because if we see this pair go down, if we see the dollar yen pair go down, that's because the yen is strengthening and the dollar is weakening. So I'd be looking for downside on dollar yen. Definitely interested in finding some sort of downside. From a 4-hour time frame, we are consolidating just a little bit. I look for a break of this consolidation and then retesting last week's lows and then finding some more downside. Okay. AUD USD and NZD USD, I'm actually just going to skip over both of these pairs. I'm not really interested in trading, but USD CAD. Okay. So USD CAD, this is one of the pairs that I am definitely interested in trading. I know I said in the beginning I'm interested in really trading 3 pairs this week, but I think it's more so 2 pairs. Definitely, I mean, it could even be 4 pairs, dollar yen and pound yen. Both of those pairs I'm expecting downside on. But more so Euro USD buys and USD CAD sells. I don't want to overwhelm you guys, get too much into it on USD CAD of why I'm looking to sell. For some of you guys, it's probably self-explanatory. From a scaled out point of view, on the weekly time frame, I guess I can go over it very, very quickly. From a scaled out point of view on USD CAD, we're finding some very nice resistance right in this area. Okay. This is obviously our previous supply area of this bear flag, or this bull flag that we made, and then this consolidation that we ended up breaking to the downside on. And then this past week, obviously, I think this was a big tell sign for USD CAD, seeing that the week before last we saw a lot of buying pressure on USD CAD. So I think a lot of people initially going into last week, because they saw this strong bullish candle from the week before last on the weekly time frame, I think a lot of people were expecting a lot of buying pressure in USD CAD. But something I also went over last week for the premium members is I told you guys that I'm actually expecting downside on USD CAD. And sure enough, we saw the weekly candle actually find some nice resistance in this area. So definitely, I think like start of this week, actually, like in the next couple hours here, I'm actually looking at placing a trade on USD CAD. I think another tell sign on USD CAD, definitely clues for downside, was what happened right in this area, right? We initially saw the Friday before last candle break through this area, which was a major fake out. That following daily candle, we saw a very strong bearish engulfing candle, that big red candle. And then Thursday and Wednesday of last week, we saw just very strong exhaustion candles, right? We saw buyers test this area once again, but ultimately sellers come in and have control. And then Friday, we saw the final breakout of this area, and now we can see definitely some selling pressure on this pair. So look to sell USD CAD, in my opinion. So again, two most interested pairs that I'm trading on. Let me make that very clear for all 24 of you guys or 23 of you guys watching this right now. Expect buys on Euro USD this week and expect sells on USD CAD. I think both of these pairs, both of these trades are going to be very profitable this week. We're expecting some pretty big downside on USD CAD. I think we're expecting some pretty strong upside on Euro USD. And I think, I'll just give you guys an example on something with USD CAD really quickly. Maybe if you're looking around selling this pair now for like a weekly trade, maybe have your stop loss just above the this supply area. So it's a little bit bigger stop loss than I would usually like to see. If you guys are in the premium group and you guys trade my signals, you guys know that usually the signals I give out have, between like a 15 and 30 pip stop loss. This looks to be about 120 pip stop loss. But if you're using the position size calculator and you're putting in the 2% that you want to risk into that calculator, then it doesn't matter if the stop loss is 30 pips or 120 pips, you still can risk the same amount. It's not just because you have 120 pip stop loss means that you're risking more. And then look for like a 1 to 2 take profit. 120, 240. For about a 1 to 2 take profit. So this would be a long-term trade, guys. I do think USD CAD is going to fall. I think there's some good moves to the downside on USD CAD. So maybe we could wait for a little bit of a pullback from Friday's candle and then re-enter to get just a little bit better entry for a little bit better risk to reward. But my eyes are definitely on USD CAD and they are definitely on Euro USD. Also, in the back of my mind, I am also watching pound yen and dollar yen both for downside, okay? So that's today's weekly outlook, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you're watching this replay on YouTube, leave a thumbs up, subscribe so you can watch all of the future ones. Leave a comment if this helped you guys out. If you guys are new here and you have any questions for me, best way to reach me is either through Facebook or Telegram or even Instagram. I reply on there. But that's it, guys. So I appreciate you guys' time. If you are a premium member, I'll see you guys tomorrow on tomorrow's live webinar. And if you guys are a free member, I'll catch you guys on next week's live weekly outlook. Appreciate you guys' time. We have a couple questions. Nick, you asked, when am I coming back to Arizona? I will be headed back to Arizona I'll be headed back to the United States on April 9th. From Australia, but I'll first be stopping in Hawaii. Then I'll be landing in California, spending about a week or so in California, and then I'll finally be back in Arizona. So middle of April, I'll be back in Arizona. But yeah, feel free to message me, guys. Have a great week and stay safe trading. Use good risk management, good risk reward on any trades that you guys place, and have a fun trading week, guys. Take care.